My name is Sarah Perez, and I truly believed I had found my forever with a man who once promised me everything, until, in a single moment, he took it all away. It happened on a rainy afternoon in Seattle, the kind of day when the city seems alive with the soft clatter of coffee cups and the steady rhythm of umbrellas tapping against the pavement. I walked into Brewhaven, a stylish downtown cafe, where the air was rich with the aroma of freshly roasted coffee and cinnamon pastries. I was running late, my scrub still wrinkled from a long shift at Harborview Medical Center. Even so, I was smiling, thinking about my fiancé, Ethan Caldwell, who I expected to find waiting at our usual corner table. I never even had the chance to sit properly. Ethan glanced up from his latte, his hazel eyes distant and unfamiliar. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, his tone flat, as though he had rehearsed the line. My stomach tightened instantly. I slid into the chair, gripping my bag, and let out a nervous laugh. "What's this about? Did the caterer mess up the menu again?" He didn't return the smile. Instead, he reached into his jacket and placed a small velvet box on the table, not as a gift, but as something to reclaim. "I can't marry you," he said. 7 words, sharp, final, like a door slamming shut. I froze, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and humiliation. "What?" I whispered. He leaned back, looking almost relieved. "We're heading in different directions, Sarah. I've made some connections, important ones. Claire Prescott and we align in ways I didn't realize before." Claire Prescott, the daughter of Richard Prescott, the venture capitalist who practically owned half of Seattle's tech world. My heart began pounding violently. "You're leaving me for her?" I asked, my voice breaking. "It's not like that," he replied, though his eyes betrayed him. "You deserve someone simpler." Then, as if he hadn't already shattered me, he added, "The ring, it's a family heirloom. My grandmother would want it back." My hands trembled as I slipped it off and placed it between us. "Thank you for your honesty," I managed to say, barely audible, before walking out past the curious stares and into the pouring rain. It wasn't until I reached Pike Street that the tears came, hot, relentless, washing away the life I thought I was about to have. I couldn't bring myself to return to the apartment Ethan and I shared in Capitol Hill. The thought of seeing half-packed boxes and my wedding dress hanging in the closet like a ghost was unbearable. I wandered through Seattle's rain-soaked streets, my phone buzzing with concerned messages from coworkers I couldn't bring myself to answer. But when I finally did return, my worst fear was waiting for me. My belongings were neatly packed into labeled suitcases by the door, like I was nothing more than a package marked, "Return to sender." Ethan hadn't done it. He was never that precise. It had to be his mother. Her way of erasing me from her son's perfect life. I collapsed onto the floor, the cold tile seeping through my jeans. My old studio apartment lease in Tacoma had ended weeks earlier, already taken by a graduate student. Every dollar I had saved, $11,200, had gone into the wedding. Now I had just $87 left in my account and 6 days until payday. I felt like I was 13 again, back in foster care, waiting for someone else to determine my worth. With nowhere else to turn, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I called Linda Hayes, my foster mother. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice instantly grounding me. "Sarah, sweetheart, I was just thinking about those boots we saw at the mall." I tried to respond, but a sob escaped instead. That was all she needed to hear. An hour later, I was sitting on her worn plaid couch in Tacoma, clutching a mug of peppermint tea as she gently draped a quilt over me. "Stay as long as you need," she said softly, brushing my hair back just like she used to when I was a frightened child. "You don't have anything to prove." That night, sleep refused to come. I lay on the pull-out bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Ethan's words again and again. Had I only been a placeholder? Someone to fill the gap until Claire Prescott's polished, glittering world became available to him? By morning, the heartbreak had hardened into something heavier, shame. At 28, I was supposed to be starting a family, stepping into a new chapter. Instead, I was homeless, heartbroken, and back at the beginning, with nothing but a duffel bag and a nursing license to my name. I forced myself to get up, shower, and dress before heading to the hospital, determined to hold myself together, even if it was only through sheer willpower. Back at Harborview, I moved through my shifts like a ghost. My coworkers smiled, completely unaware, asking about wedding details, flowers, venues, guest lists. I smiled back, nodding, lying through my teeth. "We're just adjusting the guest list," I'd say. Telling the truth felt like it would tear me open, exposing everything raw and broken inside. Each day, my scrubs felt heavier, the harsh fluorescent lights a constant reminder of the life I felt trapped in. Seattle suddenly felt too small. There was no escaping Ethan and Claire's new life, probably being celebrated at some glamorous tech event across the city. I needed to leave. 3 long days passed, each one a quiet battle to keep myself from falling apart. I told my coworkers the wedding was postponed, that Ethan was away on a business trip. The lies kept building, as heavy and suffocating as the grief I carried inside. On the 3rd day, while checking in 4 patients in room 12, Rachel, our no-nonsense charge nurse, poked her head inside. "Sarah, you still dreaming of a way out of this grind?" I blinked, confused.
"What?"
She pulled me into the hallway, lowering her voice. "You know Tara from Ortho? She took a private nursing gig last month. Big money, but she bailed last week. Couldn't handle the client." I frowned. "Who's the client?" Rachel smirked. "Some tech hotshot, Nathan Cole. Paralyzed after a climbing accident. Lives in a ridiculous mansion in Bellevue. Total nightmare, apparently." My pulse quickened. "What's the pay?" She raised an eyebrow. "Triple our salary. Private suite, meals included, no night shifts, just 1 patient. But he scared off every nurse in 2 weeks flat." I hesitated. I was a hospital nurse, not a live-in caregiver. But the word escape struck me like a lifeline. I'd spent my childhood bouncing between foster homes, learning to survive by seizing chances. This felt like one. "Got a contact?" I asked. Rachel handed me a card with elegant cursive, "Helen Voss, estate manager," along with a number. "Good luck," she said with a half-laugh. "You'll need it." That night, I stood in Linda's backyard, the Puget Sound breeze sharp against my face, and dialed the number. My hands trembled, but I was done letting fear hold me back. I barely slept before the call with Helen Voss. Her voice was crisp, like someone used to giving orders. "Can you interview tomorrow at 9 a.m.?" she asked. I stammered, "Yes," and she sent an address in Bellevue. By 4 a.m., I was on a shuttle from Tacoma to Seattle, then in a cab winding through Bellevue's lush hills. The world outside blurred, suburban sprawl giving way to estates that looked like they belonged in magazines. When we reached Nathan Cole's mansion, my breath caught. It was all glass and steel, perched on a hillside as if it had grown from the earth itself, a fortress of wealth and solitude. The black gate slid open, and I stepped out, clutching my resume. Helen Voss met me at the door, a woman in her 60s, with a severe bun and a navy suit that screamed precision. Her eyes scanned me as if I were a chart she needed to memorize. "You're early," she said, without smiling. "I didn't want to be late," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded.
"Follow me."
The interview felt like a surgical procedure, quick, precise, and devoid of warmth. Helen skimmed my resume, asked about my ICU experience, my ability to handle stress, and my discretion. "Nathan Cole is complex," she said, her tone carrying a warning. "Round-the-clock care, 2 days off a month, no visitors. Medical expertise is critical. Can you handle that?" I thought of Ethan's betrayal, the suitcases by the door, the ache of starting over. "Yes," I said, meeting her gaze. She slid a contract across the table. "The position is yours. Salary is $12,000 a month, plus bonuses based on progress. You'll live adjacent to Mr. Cole's suite. Meals and lodging included. Review this by tomorrow." I gripped the chair to keep from gasping. It was more than triple my hospital pay, a lifeline I couldn't refuse. "I'll start tomorrow," I said, signing without hesitation. Helen's eyes softened just a fraction. "Be ready," she said. "He's not what you expect." As I left, the mansion's sleek lines and silent halls loomed around me, both a promise and a warning. I had no plan, just a duffel bag and a heart still bleeding. But I was here, and that was enough for now. The next morning, I stood outside Nathan Cole's suite, contract in hand, my heart hammering as if I were about to walk into an exam I hadn't studied for. The hallway gleamed with polished wood and muted light, the kind of quiet that swallowed sound. Helen Voss stood beside me, a clipboard clutched like a shield. "You're sure about this?" she asked, her voice low, as if she were offering me one final chance to back out. I swallowed hard and signed the contract. She raised an eyebrow. "That's not what I asked." I nodded. "Yes." She knocked twice, sharp, deliberate, and opened the door without waiting. The room was enormous, more like an art gallery than a bedroom, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the misty Bellevue Hills. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors. It felt cold, like a place designed for someone who preferred not to be seen. Nathan stood by the window in a sleek wheelchair, his back to us, fingers tapping against the armrest. "Mr. Cole," Helen said, her tone clipped, "your new nurse, Sarah Perez." He didn't turn immediately. He just kept tapping as though counting down to something. Then he pivoted, and I froze. I had expected someone older, maybe frail, but Nathan Cole was neither. He looked to be in his mid-30s, tall even while seated, with dark hair and a jaw sharp enough to cut glass. His green eyes were piercing, sizing me up as if I had already failed some unspoken test. "So," he said, his voice low and edged with venom, "they sent another one." I opened my mouth, but he cut me off. "What's the bet, Helen?" "A week. 10 days. Helen didn't flinch. "I'll leave you to get acquainted," she said, then stepped out. The door clicked shut behind her like a trap. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. "I'm not here to bet," I said at last. "I'm here to do my job." He rolled closer, studying me like I was a puzzle he had no interest in solving. "And what's that?" he asked. "Handing out pills?" Holding my hand while I failed to walk. His smirk challenged me, daring me to break. "I'm here to help you live," I said, meeting his gaze. "Not to pity you." His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Still, something told me I had just passed the first test, whether he admitted it or not. My first day with Nathan felt like walking a tightrope. He was all sharp edges, throwing out barbs to see if I would flinch. I didn't. I had handled patients far tougher than him. Veterans cursing through pain, children fighting needles. Nathan Cole wasn't going to break me. I administered his medication, reviewed his therapy plan, and ignored his remarks about nurses who thought they were heroes. By evening, he had grown quiet, watching me adjust his bed with those piercing eyes, as if waiting for me to make a mistake. That night, a storm rolled over Bellevue, the wind rattling the mansion's windows. I couldn't sleep. The howling outside echoed the chaos in my head. Ethan's voice, Claire's name, the ring I had given back. Around 1 a.m., I noticed a light coming from the West Wing gym, a place Nathan's staff rarely entered. I told myself it was nothing, maybe just a forgotten switch, but something pulled me out of bed. I slipped on a sweater and crept down the hall, the mansion's silence pressing in on me. When I reached the gym, I pushed the door open just a crack. Inside, Nathan clutched the parallel bars, his arms shaking with effort as sweat gathered across his forehead. His legs wavered, unsteady yet determined, forcing themselves forward in slow, painful steps. My breath hitched. He was walking, or at least trying to, completely alone and in secret. The door creaked, and his head jerked toward me, eyes burning with anger. "What the hell are you doing?" he snapped. "I heard something," I replied, stepping inside cautiously. "I thought you might need help." His jaw tightened, his grip on the bars turning his knuckles pale. "Get out, Sarah. Now." I didn't move, not out of defiance, but because I saw it clearly, the fire in him, that fierce refusal to give up. "Why are you hiding this?" I asked gently. "You're improving." A harsh, bitter laugh escaped him. "Improving? The moment people see this, they start expecting miracles. And when I can't give them that, they walk away." His voice cracked just enough to reveal the pain underneath. I stepped closer. I won't tell anyone, but if you let me help, we can do this properly. You don't have to go through it alone. He stared at me, first with anger, then with exhaustion.
Fine, he muttered at last.
But no one finds out, and you follow my lead. I nodded.
Deal.
Something shifted between us in that moment. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a beginning. Our secret session started the very next morning, before the first light touched Bellevue's hills. Nathan and I met in the gym while the mansion still slept, the air crisp with a scent of polished wood and lingering sweat. Every step he took was a struggle, his legs trembling, his hands clinging to the bars as if they were the only thing holding him upright. I didn't offer sympathy. Instead, I observed, corrected his posture, and monitored his vitals. His pain was real, but so was his determination, and that earned my respect more than words ever could. As the days went by, we fell into a quiet rhythm. Sometimes, I'd catch him watching me, as though he were trying to understand why I hadn't given up on him. One evening, while I prepared his medication, he spoke, his voice slow and measured. You're not like the others. Why did you take this job? I paused, Ethan's betrayal flashing through my mind. Because I know what it feels like to be discarded, I said quietly. And I'm done letting that define who I am. For a brief moment, his expression softened. Then he looked away. Don't get attached, he said. I don't do friends. I smirked slightly.
Good.
I don't believe in fairy tales. Then it happened. I was restocking the medicine cabinet in my room when I heard a voice drifting from the main hall, smooth, self-assured, and completely unfamiliar. Curiosity pulled me down the hall, and I followed the sound until I reached the west sitting room. Inside, stretched across a leather couch, lounged a man in his 40s, a Rolex catching the light as he casually sipped bourbon as if it were midday. Nathan sat opposite him, his smile strained and tight. You look like hell, the man remarked with a laugh. Good to see you too, Marcus, Nathan replied dryly. Marcus Reed, Nathan's business partner who had been running Caltech since the accident, carried himself with a slick, almost polished charm. Yet there was something unsettling about him. The way his eyes skimmed over Nathan, calculating, as though evaluating a transaction instead of a person, sent a chill creeping across my skin. I stepped in quietly, holding a tray of water, trying to remain unnoticed. Marcus's gaze shifted to me, slow and assessing. So, this the new nurse? He asked with a smirk. Sarah Perez, I answered coolly. Better than the last ones? He added. Nathan's voice cut through sharply. She's here to do her job, not entertain you. I placed the tray down, my pulse quickening. Marcus let out a soft laugh, but what he said next froze me in place. Prescott Venture is ready to move. The name Prescott struck me like a blow. Marcus leaned closer to Nathan, lowering his voice, though every word remained clear. Richard Prescott is ready to fund the merger. We just need the control package signed over to the shell company. Olivia's already lined up the board. My heart thundered. Olivia Prescott, Claire's sister, worked for their father's powerful venture capital empire. Nathan stared out the window, his knuckles whitening against the armrest. I'll review the papers, he said flatly. Marcus leaned in further. We're running out of time, Nate. This is the play. I slipped out before they could notice me, my thoughts spinning. Back in my room, I shut the door behind me, my chest rising and falling rapidly. Prescott Ventures.
Claire.
Olivia. Was this connected to Ethan's betrayal? Had I been chosen for this job because I was expendable, someone no one would question? The coincidence felt too precise, too deliberate, like a blade hidden in plain sight. That night, while helping Nathan with his stretches, I couldn't stay silent any longer. I overheard Marcus today, I said, keeping my voice steady. He's pressuring you to sign Caltech over to a shell company linked to Prescott Ventures. Claire Prescott's name came up. Nathan paused, his eyes narrowing. You know her? I swallowed. My ex-fiancé left me for her. His gaze locked onto mine, thoughtful. Ethan Caldwell, he said, not asking. I nodded. You know him? I've heard the name through Marcus, he replied, easing back from the bars. You're saying my partner and your ex are what? Working together? I said, taking a breath. I'm saying it's too convenient. Prescott Ventures wants your company, and Claire is tied to Ethan. Maybe they hired me because I'm already known to them. He fell silent, his expression impossible to read. I braced myself, expecting him to dismiss it as paranoia. Instead, he simply said, I'll review the documents. That was all. No reassurance, no strategy, just distance where I had hoped for trust. I left the gym, a tightness gripping my chest. Had I misunderstood everything? Was I chasing ghosts born from my own heartbreak? That night, I paced my room, doubts slowly creeping in. What if I was wrong, seeing betrayal where none existed? Or worse, what if I was right and Nathan didn't believe me? The stakes felt far beyond my broken heart now, as though I had wandered into a game I was never meant to play. The next morning, there was a knock at my door, something Nathan had never done before. I opened it to find him in his wheelchair, a folder resting on his lap, his eyes sharper than I had ever seen them. You were right, he said slowly. Prescott Ventures wasn't investing at all. The paperwork was actually shifting control into a shell company Marcus had quietly created 2 months earlier, hidden beneath multiple corporate layers. My breath stalled as the realization hit. They were stealing Colt T. He gave a sharp nod and slid the folder toward me, asking me to help stop it. 4 days after that, we worked in absolute secrecy, deep into the nights at the oak table in his study. Nathan went through contracts, emails, and banking records with relentless focus, his hands trembling from exhaustion, but his mind razor-sharp. I sorted and organized the evidence, cross-checking names and connections while he slowly revealed the weight of his regrets. One night, his voice turned heavy as he admitted, Marcus was there when I wrote my first app. I trusted him to speak for me when I couldn't even walk. I met his gaze and replied softly, You eventually trusted your own instincts. That's what truly matters. Together, we planned a calculated boardroom ambush. Nathan reached out to his lawyer, collecting solid proof of Marcus's betrayal, even sending Marcus a carefully crafted decoy email thanking him for his management of things. The day before the meeting, he pushed himself to practice walking with a cane, 10 steps, then 15, each movement a quiet rebellion against his pain. I want them to see me, he said firmly. Not the chair.
Me.
The boardroom sat inside Colt T's downtown Seattle office, a sleek fortress of glass and steel that mirrored Nathan's mansion. We arrived early. Nathan moved slowly beside me, but with determination. As we entered, conversations dropped and whispers spread through the suited crowd. Marcus was already at the head of the table, Olivia Prescott seated beside him in a sharp blazer, and farther down sat Ethan, smaller, almost diminished compared to how I remembered him. The polished confidence on Ethan's face had faded. Nathan didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the head of the table, his cane striking the floor with authority, and declared, This meeting is mine. He laid everything out, fabricated clauses, hidden accounts, and Marcus's scheme to transfer Colt T to Prescott Ventures. Olivia remained expressionless, but Marcus broke under pressure. You can't prove intent, he stammered. Nathan didn't flinch. I don't need to. Breach of duty is enough. The board voted unanimously. Marcus was removed, and all fraudulent contracts were voided. Ethan avoided my eyes completely. As Olivia stormed out, Nathan turned to me and said, You're the reason I'm standing here. My chest tightened, not just for him, but for the strength I had discovered in myself along the way. In the weeks that followed, it felt like waking from a long, suffocating sleep. Nathan's mansion, once cold and distant like a fortress, slowly began to feel alive again. We opened the windows, letting Seattle's crisp air move freely through the halls. The overgrown garden was brought back to life under new care, blooming again with color and purpose. Nathan still limped, his cane never far from him, but the bitterness that once defined him was fading, and so was mine. I stopped replaying Ethan's words in my head. I stopped grieving the wedding that never happened. Instead, I began running again, Short loops on the trail behind the house, feeling my lungs burn and my spirit lighten. I laughed without guilt for the first time in years, like a child from my foster care days finally catching brief moments of joy between hardships. Nathan, in his own chaotic way, insisted on cooking once a week. It became a ritual of disasters: burnt rice, ruined sauces, and loud curses at the stove while I sat on the kitchen island laughing at him. One evening, he slid a questionable plate of pasta toward me and said, "If this poisons you, I'm not responsible." I smirked and replied, "Then you'll inherit my hospital badge in my will." He suddenly grew quiet, eyes steady. "Actually, no," he said. I frowned. "What do you mean?" He leaned in slightly. "I placed Colt tea in a trust," he explained softly. "And you're part of it." I froze. "What?" He continued gently. "I'm not giving you the company, Sarah. But you helped me build something better than I ever did alone. I want you in whatever comes next." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something warm and grounding, like finally finding home after years of drifting. Then he opened a small box revealing a simple gold ring with a single emerald. "I'm not asking for forever yet," he said quietly. "I'm still figuring myself out, and I know you didn't sign up for all this. But will you walk this path with me? Not to save me, but because you make me remember who I can become." I didn't cry, even though I felt close to it. Instead, I felt steady, like solid ground beneath shifting years. I took the ring, slipped it on, and smiled. "I'm not saying yes," I said, "but I'm not saying no." He laughed, a full, unrestrained sound that filled the room. We didn't rush anything. No dramatic declarations, just quiet mornings, shared coffee, and small victories. Nathan eventually walked a full mile unaided one spring morning. I passed my certification and prepared to start my own private practice. We hired staff, and slowly the mansion stopped feeling like his alone. It became ours. Ethan texted once, "A week, you okay?" I never replied. I didn't need to. That heartbreak had already guided me somewhere new, somewhere better than I ever imagined. On Nathan's birthday, we drove to the Washington coast. He walked beside me on the beach, boots sinking into the sand, wind cutting across our faces. He looked out at the ocean and asked, "Do you think we'll ever be who we were before?" I shook my head gently. "I hope not. Who we are now is better." He took my hand, and we stood there watching the waves crash, our pasts dissolving like footprints being erased by the tide. To everyone who has followed this journey, thank you. You've walked through heartbreak, betrayal, and the fight to reclaim what was lost. If this story moved you, subscribe and join us where every step forward is a story of grit, heart, and new beginnings. Keep chasing your truth, and I'll meet you on the path ahead.